This is an episode of Coach's Corner with myself, Brady Stanifer, Kaden Turner, and today we're bringing on Coach Cangany. Coach, last year you guys had a 14-10 record, and it didn't end the way you guys wanted to, but last year you guys did find a lot of success with balance with 4 guys averaging double figures. Is that something that you want to take advantage of this year?
Yeah, I mean, we returned 2 of the 4 guys that all averaged within 1 point per game of each other. That was something that made us difficult to defend. It made us difficult to prepare for. And we return Austin and Wyatt. We think they're big-time players. We think this year they can even take another step forward. But we also know that we have guys like Jazz Banwaite, Braden Roy, Avery Seifries, and then we've got 3 sophomores with Ethan Edwards, Gavin Stubbe, and Malik Perkins that we think are going to give us really solid minutes. So we feel like we've got a really strong top 9. We do know that Austin and Wyatt are going to take on a larger role this year, but we do know that it's fun to play unselfish basketball. It's fun to know that you can make that next pass to your teammate and play just good team offense. And so, yeah, we will definitely try to be a balanced team, but we do know that we have 2 really good players that, all conference returners, and then B-Roy and Jazz return 2 as varsity players. So it's going to be a fun year.
And then to build off that one, over the last few years, your program has really made a bunch of strides through county and conference. How do you guys just keep building on that?
So, it's great that our program has kept getting better over the last few years. We do know that, like, last year's results don't really matter this year. It's great to build a tradition. It's great to build a culture. It's great for guys to expect success. But it's a new year, it's a new team, and so we've got to go out there and we've got to grind from day one, looking to create our own goals and accomplish those goals. So as good as things were last year, first time in school history to win a conference and a county in the same year, we're excited about that. We're happy about that, but this is a new year and we want to make, new accomplishments this year.
How hard is it to decide how big of a role guys like Ethan Edwards and Gavin Stubbe, as you mentioned, will have on the team whenever you have guys on the bench like Avery has a lot more experience and a lot more years under his belt?
For the fans, it might just seem like we go from March to November and nothing happens in between, but we put in a lot of time in the off season, and part of what we do in the off season is we have different phases of our off season where we try to work on different things instead of the whole off season being real long and being just all the same. In the spring, in the early fall, it's a lot of individual stuff. But in June and then the end of our preseason in October, we do a lot of team stuff. And so especially in June when we had a chance to go play, 25-plus games, we got a chance to see, what can Avery do? What can Gavin do? What can E do? What can Malik do? And we feel like we got a pretty good grasp of how they can help our team, but also how they complement each other. Each of those players has their own strengths and weaknesses, and our team overall has strengths and weaknesses. And so it was a really big deal for us this summer, knowing that we have some really good players. How do we put that together in the best interest of our team? So I feel like we got a pretty good idea going into the season on what they all do, but I would definitely not be surprised to see, one conference game where Avery steps up and plays some big minutes in the fourth quarter and makes some really good, plays for us, defense to offense. I could see games where you see, Gavin Stubbe in double figures scoring, or Ethan Edwards just hit 4 or 5 threes. I think that they can all step up. But we do have a deep team, and so hopefully nobody feels too much pressure there. But we're excited to see the younger guys step up.
Last year, you guys lost all 4 seniors who played multiple years of varsity basketball. How are you going to fill those roles, and how are you going to get these younger guys more comfortable filling those roles?
When you lose guys like we did, Max, Hig, Kyson, and DG, you never want them to go. I mean, they're good people. They're good kids. We loved having them in our program. But graduation happens, and we're excited for them to all take the next step in their life. But as for our basketball program, we embrace it. We know that change is always going to happen. It's high school sports. That's college sports. And so when guys graduate, it's got to be next man up. There are times, over the course of my career when we've had injuries or people not play or this or that, and you just have to figure out a way to go next man up and make it work. But it's also exciting because those younger guys have been working, really, really hard to get their opportunity. And so, you never really know, like, the very first time that Gavin Stubbe and Ethan Edwards go in the game as sophomores, or Malik Perkins goes in the game as a sophomore, how are they going to handle that? I can't tell you, but I know over the course of the season they're going to handle it well. They might have their growing pains, but when they're seniors, we're going to be sitting down here with, whoever is doing this, the Coach's Corner show, and being like, okay, how do you make up for the loss of Ethan Edwards and Malik Perkins and Gavin Stubbe? But we'll figure out a way.
All right, Coach, and speaking to guys like Austin, B-Roy, DJ, Avery, and Malik earlier, those are really like long guys, long arms, and they're really athletic. How do you look to take advantage of that during the course of the season?
I do think that we can be a really good defensive team this year. I think with our length and athleticism, I think we have the opportunity to really dictate the game with our defense. But I also feel like we've always been a team that we've wanted to run. And in my first 3 years here, we've always been top 3 in the conference in scoring. And part of the reason for that is the way that we run in transition. We share the basketball, and I think that length and athleticism can help us there. But then, like last year, when we were able to win a conference, we were the only team in the conference to be top 3 in defense and top 3 in offense statistically. And I think that's where I feel like this team can have a pretty solid year, pretty competitive year, because I think we can be top 3 in both those categories again.
Last year, you guys, once again, we're going to talk about the seniors again, but Max, you guys lost. He was a big leader on the team. Who do you think can fill that leadership role on your team?
Max, so I got the chance to coach Max for 3 years, and he was, from day one, I knew that he was a great leader. He was a sophomore, and we had a very young, inexperienced team, but he was a great leader, and that carried over his junior and senior years. This year, like Austin works as hard as anybody I've ever coached. Great guy to follow, but personality-wise, he's a little bit more on the quiet side than Max was. Max would tell you how it is. Austin will show you how it is. To be honest, one guy that I've been really impressed with as far as being a vocal leader is Jazz Banwait, and that's kind of nice coming from your point guard, knowing that he can tell guys the way it is, and they respect him. They will respond, whether it's Austin, whether it's Wyatt, B-Roy, DJ, Avery. If Jazz says something, they generally know that he's speaking, from a good place, and they follow that. But I think this year we're going to probably have more of a collective leadership than any just one person stepping up. But I think that's kind of nice too, because they all have some skin in the game. They all have a responsibility, and they're going to take that head on.
So last year, speaking of all conference and stuff like that, you guys had Austin and Wyatt, who was all conference. And last year, Wyatt was more your spark off the bench. Who are you looking for to have that kind of spark off the bench this year?
Last year we were very fortunate. Wyatt McLaughlin was one of the best players in the conference, and he didn't start a game, but to him that didn't matter. To a lot of guys, probably not his team first, and you might have a problem with a guy that's that talented coming off the bench. Wyatt never caused a problem. I think that was good for us long term to kind of show that if Wyatt McLaughlin could do it on a really good team, then whoever we're going to ask to be that spark off the bench, you can do it. And so I think this year, I think it'll be a committee, but I think Avery Seifries will do a really good job coming off the bench. Defensively this summer, he really impressed us. But also, from an offensive standpoint, he may not end up scoring as much as Wyatt did last year. But he definitely held his own on offense and really helped us to have kind of a balanced scoring approach off the bench. But I also, when you look at some of the sophomores, Malik can really defend. Ethan and Gavin can score. So I think it could kind of be like, instead of having just Wyatt last year to come off the bench and provide the defense and the offense, I think we're going to get it by committee this year.
Every team is different, and how you call a play, or you just let them run freely. What can we expect more from this team this year?
One of the things that we will always want to have in our system is the ability to get out and run. I think that's been good for us, and I think that going back to earlier talking about our length and athleticism, I think that the way that we run kind of goes well with that athleticism. But as far as in the half court, we want to be efficient. We want to make sure we're getting great shots. We want to limit turnovers. From an offensive perspective, we want our guys to get the ball in places where they can be successful. And so for us, that's part of coaching. It's putting your guys in positions to be successful. And so, there will be times where we do, set something up and we run some sets, or we get the ball, a quick hitter to one of our scorers, or if somebody is, feeling it, getting them the ball. But we do want to run, and we do want to teach our guys how to play the game instead of being robots out there.
And Coach, we've talked about the X's and O's of this team, but what do you think this team is personality-wise?
Personality-wise, I think this team, number one, we're really close. The guys get along really well. But I think this team kind of has a chip on our shoulder. And part of the reason I say that is, like, I think Austin Willoughby and Wyatt McLaughlin are really, really good players. And you keep hearing about different players around Central Indiana getting all this publicity and all this talk from, people who are supposed to be recruiting analysts or, different coaches. And a lot of times they're not mentioning Austin and Wyatt in a place where they should mention them. And so I think that Austin and Wyatt, instead of throwing a fit about it, they've just got in the gym. They're working hard, and I think that they're ready to show it this year. But then also, as a team, we returned 4 varsity players. We returned 2 all-conference players. We won 14 games last year. We won a conference. We won a county. And we're not getting talked about at all. And you know what? That's okay. You don't have to talk about us. But you will have to figure out what it's like to play against us, and you will have to figure out a way to beat us. And I'm not sitting here saying we're going to go undefeated, although that would be great. But I do think that we're going to be a really tough game for a lot of people. And so with this year, our guys are close. It's a family. But I also think that there's going to be a little bit of a chip because I don't know that we're getting the respect we think we deserve.
Thank you for your time, Coach. My name's Kaden Turner. This is Brady Stanifer, and that was Coach's Corner.